Hello everyone and welcome to the second of our series of weekly videos we've put together to keep you up to date about the current market situation and how it affects our financial position. I hope that you found our first video useful. We'd love to hear any feedback as well as any suggestions for topics that you'd like me to cover over the next few weeks. What I'd like to talk to you about today is what the St James's Place fund managers are doing at this time in terms of work going on behind the scenes to monitor your investments, as well as the approaches they're taking to grasp opportunities now which will potentially benefit investors in the medium to long term. And equally what they're doing to defend you against further volatility in this ongoing crisis. I'll also touch upon how the fund managers are monitored by St James's Place Wealth Management. Each of the St James's Place fund managers will have a different strategy and mandate and will be investing across different regions and asset classes. But what they do all have in common is that they operate on a completely non-emotional basis. It's human nature for us to view things on an emotional level, particularly when it comes to our hard-earned money. But the fund managers don't get involved in emotional decision making. Their role is to seek opportunities and adopt a forward-thinking view in order to make the right judgment call at the right time. Despite differences in the way they work, they do share much in common with regards to their broader outlook on investing through volatility. In their most recent comments, 3 broad conclusions about the current pandemic-induced market downturn are especially prominent. Firstly, it created a deep and rapid sell-off, and this reflects medical and social realities. Secondly, it's simply not possible to forecast virus timelines, and therefore timelines for the eventual economic recovery. No one can do that this time. But what the fund managers are doing is constantly listening to the medical experts and monitoring what governments and central banks are doing to soften the downturn. And thirdly, many companies have been wrongly devalued, so there are excellent opportunities for an active fund manager. When everyone else in the market is fearful, it may well mean good companies are being sold off unjustly, allowing prudent long-term investors to grasp a rare opportunity to buy some of the best companies at low prices. On this point, I just wanted to share with you an interesting soundbite to give you a flavour about how proactive St James's Place fund managers are operating. One of the managers has recently sold Tesco out of the portfolio. Now, on paper, with panic buying and queues for supermarkets, this may seem a strange decision. However, what he'd previously studied was Tesco's performance prior to COVID-19, when they were about to reduce staff, close stores and streamline their operations. He didn't think that the company would record the profits he would want as an investor, and that the short-term increase in sales was not a good enough reason to keep holding the stock. In fact, he saw an opportunity as Tesco's price had been driven up by private investors, thinking it was a good stock to buy, which enabled him to sell at a premium, a good return for you as an investor. He then bought shares in ITV. ITV shares have been devalued significantly, far too big a devaluation in his view. He felt a much smaller drop would have been a fairer reflection of the company value. And looking at trends and our current stay-at-home habits, he knew that ITV's advertisers would be looking for prime-time advertising space, so could anticipate an upward trajectory, and therefore a great opportunity. This is where a good fund manager comes into their own. I have several of these examples of how the fund managers are working for you, so please do let me know if you'd like to hear more. I think a general comment I would like to add at this point is that the strongest thing we can take from performance data at the moment is the power of diversification. I know I've mentioned this before, but by spreading your money across a selection of asset types, countries and sectors, your investments stand a better chance of achieving more consistent returns, and this is still the case today. Secondly, please don't panic. We know from past downturns that crises do end, and once markets recover, history tells us that eventually they end up higher than before. Those of you who've been to some of my presentations will be familiar with the quote about experiencing turbulence on the plane. We've all experienced some turbulence on a planned journey at some point in our lives, but that's no reason to jump out of the plane and not reach our eventual destination. The same adage is true with investing. You always have to keep in sight your long-term investment objectives when markets become volatile. And if you're holding cash, now is a good time to invest. In terms of overseeing the fund managers, as you may already be aware, our St James's Place Investment Committee sits in front of all of the fund managers across your portfolios. Prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, the committee would speak to them every 2 months. However, discussions are now taking place with fund managers on a weekly basis to assess what they've bought and sold, the stance they're taking over certain geographical areas, as well as their view over certain industries and how they're affected by governments around the world and their fiscal policies. And on top of that, our St James's Place internal investment team is looking at the fund managers every day, and with access to all trade information and a strong feedback loop, they can see exactly what they're doing on a daily basis. I'm sure that will give you some level of reassurance that your investments are in safe hands. It's important for you as an investor, as you don't have to do that research or make those decisions. As your advisor, I digest all the information on your behalf, so I'm able to put it all into common sense strategies that work for you and your own personal circumstances. I hope you found this brief overview helpful, but please do let me know if you have any specific questions. You can always contact me on my mobile. I also just wanted to say at this stage that I will be holding a client webinar on Tuesday the 19th of May at 11 a.m. Chris Carhill, one of the St James's Place consultants, who many of you will know from our afternoon tea sessions, will be providing a more in-depth update on the current economic climate. I'll be in touch with all the details shortly and will encourage you all to join us. In the meantime, please do save the date and watch out for next week's video at the same time, Thursday at 5 p.m. And last but not least, please let me know if you have any questions or if you need advice on any of the points raised. Equally, if you have any family, friends or colleagues who need any financial advice, I'm more than happy to chat with them to see if I can help. And if I can't answer their questions, I'm in regular contact with legal, accountancy and business professionals I know who I can put them in touch with instead. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and I'll be in touch with you again next week. In the meantime, stay safe and stay well.